Hello, and welcome to the Book Speaks podcast, where the book speaks for itself. I'm your host, Benjamin Douglas, and this is the show where each week I read a chapter from a different indie author. Thanks for joining me for today's reading. Hello, readers and writers, and thank you for joining me today for episode number 15 of the Book Speaks podcast, where the book speaks for itself. Thanks for hanging around. Hey, here's to another 15. Today we're featuring indie author Aderyn Wood. I'll be reading from her title, The Raven. Very excited about this, and as always, I'll say a few words of introduction for Aderyn, but before I get to that, I'd like to make a couple of announcements. The first is that my debut title, The Lunar Gambit, which is the first in series for my military science fiction series, Starship Fairfax, goes live on Amazon and in Kindle Unlimited next Thursday. That's June 29th. Which also happens to be my birthday. So I'm ushering in my next year on planet Earth by starting a science fiction series as an indie publisher. So if you are interested at all in science fiction, military science fiction, action, adventure, tightly written prose with enjoyable characters and an exciting plot, go check that out. It's going to be 99 cents for the first week, and it's currently 99 cents on pre-order if you grab it right now. After that first week, I'm going to bump it up to either $2.99 or $3.99. I'm still sussing that out. But if you want to support me or you're just interested in the story, I encourage you to grab it at 99 cents. That'll help me. It'll get a boost in the rankings and hopefully get more eyes on it. You know, in my author journey, since I began this podcast, I've done a couple of things. I've taken a few steps toward publishing that first book. Obviously, the biggest step was writing it. But another step was writing and publishing 2 short story prequels. Each one of these short stories gives some backstory for an important character in the Lunar Gambit. If you read the Lunar Gambit and you decide you're very interested in the character Aderyn, who's a little mysterious, then I highly encourage you to go sign up for my mailing list because you'll get an exclusive free short story called The Trials of Io, only currently available to members of my mailing list. It's free, and it's a lot of fun. I think. I'm really proud of it. I have another free short story that gives some backstory on the character Lieutenant Casper. That one is free, no strings attached. You don't have to sign up for anything on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, if you have a Nook, and Smashwords Direct. And if none of those platforms work for you, but you want to read that story, which is called Totaled, heck, send me an email. I'll send you a PDF. Because I just want to get some eyes on it. I'd love some reviews, some feedback, just for you to enjoy it. I think that'd be great. I'm going to drop links to all of these in the show notes today. That's The Lunar Gambit on pre-order and coming out next Thursday. The Trials of Io, exclusive to my mailing list signups. And Totaled, a free, that is perma-free, short story prequel. And then lastly, I'm in an anthology, a science fiction anthology, which I mentioned last week. That's coming out June 28th, next Wednesday, and it's also 99 cents on pre-order on a number of vendors right now, and I'll drop a link to the Amazon page for that in the show notes. That's called The Officer, and that has Totaled, but it also has 10 other stories by other sci-fi authors for 99 cents. So grab that too if you're interested. It's a great way to discover new authors. All right, on to Aderyn Wood. I'm going to begin, as always, by reading Aderyn's Amazon author bio. From high fantasy to paranormal, Aderyn's stories cover the broad spectrum of fantasy. Inspired from childhood by the wonder and mystique of Susan Cooper's The Dark is Rising and the adventures in Tolkien's The Hobbit, her love of the fantasy genre has been lifelong. As a writer, Aderyn brings characters and places to life in stories filled with magic, mystery, and a good dollop of mayhem. Aderyn studied literature, history, and creative writing at university, traveled the world, and taught English before becoming a full-time writer. She is also a part-time farmer, passionate about self-sufficiency and poultry. She lives in a cozy cottage on a small farm in Victoria, Australia, with partner Peter, their dog, cat, and a little duck called Snow. If you'd like to be informed of Aderyn's next release, consider subscribing to her newsletter. More information on her blog. All right, so there's her very lovely Amazon author bio. And if you check out Aderyn's Amazon author page, you'll notice she actually has a couple of different series running. The Viscount's Son trilogy, the Borderlands, which has a couple of books out, and then The Secret Chronicles of Lost Magic, which she only has one title out for right now. Book 1, from which we're reading today, The Raven, is currently free! It's a free run, limited time, not always free. Just today, June 23rd, until June 27th, so just a 5-day free run. And I cannot highly enough recommend that you pick this up if you like reading at all, really, but especially if you like fantasy. And here's why. So here we go. Here's my spiel on Aderyn Wood. I did not discover Aderyn on keyboards or on a podcast or on a Facebook group. I actually just discovered her through her book. Because, as I've mentioned, I am a reader after all. And now this is a little embarrassing because I'm cheap, but occasionally I'll hop on my Kindle and I'll go to the Amazon store and I'll look in a genre that I'm interested in and I'll sort by price so that I can see if there's a free run of anything. Because it's a good way to discover a new author, right? And I'm not like completely cheap. Like if I decide I like an author, I'm going to buy the rest of their books because I want to support them, right? Okay. But anyway, I discovered The Raven on a free run. This was a little while ago, a few months ago, and I picked it up. And wow, guys, I've been thinking as I prepare to do this episode, what can I say about this book that doesn't sound trite, but that is really just honest, because I cannot express to you how much I enjoyed this read. You know, sometimes we describe books as being plot-driven versus character-driven, or vice versa. And that's a useful dichotomy. We like these binaries, right? These binary models. They help us understand the world. But The Raven is one of those books, like a lot of really good books, that sort of just destroys that binary. It supersedes it because it is mythology-driven, and it is language-driven, and at times it is character-driven, and at times it is prose-driven, but it really is immersive. I felt like I was just sucked into the world. I appreciated the pacing. I appreciated the subtle but really complete world building. World building, by the way, it's kind of like show don't tell to me. I think it's one of those things that you don't want to be reading a book and be like, oh, that's interesting world building. You want to read a book and not notice the world building. And then a week after you finished it, think back and be like, wow, that was a really immersive story. I loved that place. I want to go there again. That's what happened with The Raven for me. And I said this to Aderyn when I contacted her. I said, have you ever read any Ursula Le Guin? Because The Raven really reminds me of her tone. I'm a big Le Guin fan. I love the Earthsea books. I love her sci-fi series. And for me, Le Guin and The Raven by Aderyn Wood, they kind of ride on this cusp of, it has the tropes of this particular brand of genre fiction, which in this case I guess is fantasy, but it's sort of literary fiction. When you look at Aderyn's background, that makes a lot of sense. Now, in the indie author community, it's kind of hip to talk a big talk about how your background education-wise doesn't matter. And I understand the value in that discussion. It's an empowering discussion to tell you, hey, if you've got a story in you, Don't let the fact that you don't have an MFA in creative writing stop you. Tell your story. And I think that's beautiful, and I think that's wonderful. But I gotta say, Aderyn clearly does not have a hollow pedigree. Clearly, her education and her education teaching background have helped her immensely. She knows her way around the English language, guys, and she knows how to tell a story, and she's got a great story to tell. So, I don't know what more I can say without sounding completely ridiculous to sell this book to you, but believe me, this is a heartfelt recommendation. I love The Raven. I can't wait for more. Aderyn, please write more. I know you plan on writing more in this world, and not with this particular character. I'm going to trust you because I believe that you know what you're doing as a creative person. I'm going to trust you that that's going to work and that they're going to be awesome. But wow, I just finished it and I saw that you didn't plan on writing any more about Iluna, the character here, and I was just, I was bereft. I said, no, I want more of her story. But I believe that what I really want is more of your storytelling. Sometimes we get hooked on a series or a universe or a world, but in my experience, the authors that I continually go back to, it's not because of the world or the series, it's because of what they are doing. I fell in love with Edward Robertson's The Cycle of Aran fantasy, and I'm still reading his fantasy, by the way. And you know what? His science fiction sort of space opera action adventure books are part of what drew me into reading and wanting to write science fiction. It wasn't because I already loved science fiction, it was because I loved his books. Same thing with Lindsay Buroker. I fell in love with The Emperor's Edge, and I've liked everything she's put out since, except for her pen name, which I don't know that I would dislike, I just haven't read. Anyway, so those are all my feelings about Aderyn Wood and The Raven. It is free from today until June 27th. Please go grab it. Support this author. She really knows what she's doing. She has great stories to tell. We should all want her to keep telling them. All right, without any further ado, we're going to get to today's reading. I want to remind you all, as always, this does not come from an official audiobook. This is only my reading performed for this show with the author's consent. I'm going to read the prologue and then just a short sample from chapter 1, since I'm reading the prologue as well, and since this is a nice, decent length fantasy story, and the chapters are not skimpy. So you're not going to get a full chapter 1, but you're going to get a good little sampling of what Aderyn is doing here. Lastly, I want to remind you all that in addition to all of those links for my promotional stuff in the show notes, I'm going to be leaving links to Aderyn's Amazon author page and her own blog website. So do check that out if you're interested. Thanks again for listening, guys. I'd love a review or a rating on iTunes. I hope you come back next week. And here is Aderyn Wood's The Raven. The Raven. The Secret Chronicles of Lost Magic by Aderyn Wood. Prologue. Dear Albinus, I hope this scroll will find you well, and not drowning in the political machinations of our revered tower. I have settled here in Dyserth. A stone cottage in the forest has become my new dwelling. The villagers tell me it once housed a Carthusian hermit. There is room for a garden, and Solomon has busied himself over the summer building a stable for my mule. Importantly, I now have the solitude I require to inscribe my travels and all that I have learned, and I have completed the first of such chronicles for you to archive. I discovered the tale of Iluna within the Annals of Christophe, located in the Grand Librairie in Rhône. That great tome harbored one small passage that mentioned Iluna's story in mere passing. And within those lines, one term caught my eye. Dumai Shanja, skin changer. A footnote gave me a possible location to the source of the anecdote, and so it was I traveled to the Arlasatam Mountains and to the small village of Brudal. At first, the villagers reacted with heavy suspicion when I asked about the Dumai Shanja. Almost a month I stayed before their leader, an old wizened grandmother, decided that I'd earned her trust with my songs and stories. One night, during the full moon, she told me Iluna's tale in full. The following day, she beckoned me to trek with her through the mountains to a secret cave that she claimed was the very one in which Iluna had stayed. It was centuries old, with wall paintings like none I have ever seen, chronicling strange events from ancient clans. An odd feeling overcame me in that cave, that undeniable shiver caused by magic. Later, the old grandmother confided that Iluna still lived, and that she appears in the cave whenever the blue comet returns to our skies, every 80 years, to add more paintings to its walls. I surmised she referred to Angelus's comet. I nodded respectfully, but no doubt this was a well-worn fable passed from grandparent to grandchild throughout the centuries. Within this fable, evidence of strong magic will draw interest from fellow sages, and it is my sincere hope that it does. As you know, references to skin changers are rare indeed. Moreover, the daily practice of magic in primordial tribes also holds opportunities for further study. We've so little evidence about the use of magic in such archaic times. In the tale, there is mention of dwindling numbers of those born with the gift-born, they call them, suggesting that at one point in the distant past, it is likely that the gifted were common. But gradually over time, they have become as rare as Black Viridian. Indeed, perhaps rarer. This tale verifies that conclusion, but sheds little light as to the cause. The answer, it seems, continues to elude us. I have recorded Iluna's tale in full in the pages that follow. I look forward to hearing your insights when next we meet. And perhaps, when our paths do cross again, we should not drink so much wine. My head still recovers. May the light be always with you. Sage Vivlian of Wilt, the year of our eternal Lord 374. 2782, Old Realm Calendar. Part 1. Winter of the Sky. Izur. Izur stood close to the birthing tree on an outcrop of granite overlooking a forested valley. Mist draped the leafless canopy, clinging to the odd pine tree. The wintry day sun glinted once before descending to its lengthy rest beyond the horizon. Izur took a shuddering breath. With the day sun now making its descent to Malferin, Elune had begun. That dark time when no moon, star, or sun walked the sky for an 8-night. The Saurigan closed his eyes as his lips murmured an invocation to Ona, the mother. But the sound of footsteps made him open them again. Lily stood before him, her hands kneading each other into a tight knot. "What is it, child?" Izur asked, but he already knew her request. The young novice's eyes filled with tears. "Amak sent me. She said it's time." Izur nodded and gestured for the girl to lead him along the short stone path to the birthing tree. Men were not supposed to be present during childbirth. It was a female rite. Amak, the clan's medicine woman, and her novice, Lily, saw to such matters. A man was only allowed if he was a Saurigan, and only then if something was very, very wrong. Izur pursed his lips as he walked the few short steps to the tree. This was his first Elune as the clan's Saurigan. His first birth, too. He wished his master was still alive to guide him, to teach him. 20 summers was too young to be a clan's Saurigan. He hoped he knew what to do. Izur followed Lily up the carved steps of the giant oak tree, its leaves long gone with the winter frosts. Snow would come soon. The winter of the sky was always cold and dark. About 10 steps up the trunk, a tree dwell made of bark and mud clung to thick lower boughs, the way a hive did. Izur stepped inside and blinked, adjusting his eyes. Neria lay on the birthing mat, fatigue written on her gray face. Her dark hair clung close, eyes drawn. The bulge of her pregnancy sat low on her abdomen. She had little left. Amak stood. The medicine woman looked as though she had aged 8 winters. The lines around her eyes usually accentuated her smiles, but now they made her appear old and weary. Her tunic was stained, and blood dripped from her hands. "The day sun has gone down," her voice almost a whisper. He nodded. "I will do my best." Neither of them mentioned Elune. They were the clan's knowledge keepers. She, the medicine woman. He, the Saurigan. They knew the danger that now lurked for human and spirit alike. Elune was a dark event that occurred every 8 winters, during the winter of the sky. With no light to frighten them away, the spirits of Malferin were free to wreak their terror. The first night of Elune was no time to be welcoming a newborn into Ona's world. Izur would have to work hard to repel any dark spirits. No easy task. The demons would detect a newborn the way a wolf smells blood. Neria tried to scream again as another contraction took hold, but her voice rasped like stone on stone. Wolf pelts covered the mud floor of the tree dwell. Much of Neria's blood had drenched them, and the coppery scent filled the modest space. Izur knelt by Neria's head and wiped her sweaty forehead with the palm of his hand. She was cold. "I will protect you and your baby," he said, and Neria's eyes closed, squeezing out a tear. His voice had shaken, as had his hands. "Lily, get some lights, as many as you can," Izur instructed, trying to keep panic from his voice. The girl jumped up and tore down the tree. Twilight now rapidly diminished. They would need light to help keep the Malfear away. Izur swallowed a hard lump. He put his leather satchel on the floor of the shelter and took out the implements he required for the task ahead, his hands shaking. He placed 2 flat stone plates on the floor, both the size of his palm. He took a small clay pot and opened the stopper. The spicy aroma of olibanum and crushed sage filled his nostrils, contrasting with the thick stench of blood. He poured a generous amount of each on the stone plates and put them on either side of Neria. Lily came back with a satchel of oil pots. She held one in her hand, already alight. "Give it to me," Izur said. He lit a taper, then held it to the plates. The crushed spices smoldered, and spirals of aromatic smoke danced through the shelter. They would help deter the Malfear. Izur handed the oil pot and the taper to Lily. "Light the others, all of them, and place them around the tree dwell. Try to make a circle." Lily nodded. Soon a yellow glow lit the mud walls. Neria cried out again, and Amok cooed soothing words as she glanced earnestly at Izur. He knew the look in her eyes. It was a plea for him to do something, to move faster. A distant rumble sounded outside. Thunder. Amok heard it, too. Her eyebrow arced in a question. A winter storm on Elune night? Omens upon omens. Izur placed his hands on either side of Neria's head and started the song. A deep incantation, a call to Ona, the mother. Only she had the power to help them on such a night. His body rocked, and he closed his eyes. He focused on his breathing and the words. Whenever you're unsure, go back to the beginning. He remembered his master's advice as he followed it. Breathe, chant. Breathe, chant. Another rumble of thunder echoed. The storm crept closer. An icy breeze whipped through the shelter, sending the flames of the oil pots sideways. Neria's strained scream followed. Izur opened his eyes and wiped sweat from his forehead. His long hair hung in damp tendrils. Amak scowled and shook her head. He returned his trembling hands to Neria's temples and tried again. Breathe, chant, breathe. He felt it before he saw it, that giddy sensation. This was normal, like a feeling of falling, before his sight opened up to reveal the other world. Its familiar shadowy gray swam before him. Neria's body pulsed dimly as her light waned. Like an oil pot on its last drop, she was dying. Izur fought the urge to retract out of the other world. His grief would overpower him if he didn't control it. He focused his mind and looked around. The other world was clear. No shadows lurked. The Malfear were no threat, yet. He turned his attention to the babe. Neria's womb pulsed with a strong golden light, so powerful it was like trying to look at the day sun. Izur wanted to turn away, but forced himself to send his sight further down, toward the bright spirit still nestled within Neria's womb. In the other world, the form of the baby was fluid. The child took no clear shape and resembled something of a circle of fire. Izur marveled. Never before had he seen a spirit so bright. It calmed him. Perhaps the Malfear would be frightened. Izur had to force the birth. It was the only way. He sent forward his ethereal arm and saw the luminance of his hand and fingers. He touched the ball of golden light and whispered a chant as he pushed down. Movement and light throbbed, and he pushed harder. The glow from the oil pots was visible on this plane, dancing red globes. But another flash struck to the north, rapid bolts of blue and white. Lightning. He pushed again. More movement. Come, little one. He pushed harder. Neria's light faded further, blinking out. Nothing could be done for her now. Izur had to save the child. He pushed again, and an eruption of light threw him back before darkness came. This concludes another episode of the Book Speaks podcast, where the book speaks for itself. Thanks for joining me, your host, Benjamin Douglas, for another indie author reading. If you liked what you heard, be sure to visit http://thebookspeakspodcast.wordpress.com for more episodes and for links to the author's website and the author's Amazon author page in the show notes. If you'd like to follow me on my own author journey, you can find me at http://benjamindouglasbooks.wordpress.com. And of course, if you're an indie author interested in having your work featured on the show, or if you're interested in discussing having your book read and produced by me as an audiobook, feel free to contact me at benjamindouglasbooks@gmail.com. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you have a productive and enjoyable weekend.